So I've done a cropped copy of Caravaggio's Bacchus because I'm just interested in learning about how he glazed over his underpainting, and basically I followed the same sort of method that I did in my other Caravaggio copy. And let me know what you think. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so I've been working on this painting for about half an hour, just trying to sketch in the drawing a little bit. I'm just going to do a copy. It's only going to be the sort of head and shoulders of this picture of Bacchus by Caravaggio. And anyway, let's go on. So I've just used raw umber. I oiled out the surface. First of all, I experimented with not doing that, but it's still very scratchy, and I do prefer to have it just slightly wetter. So I just put a thin layer of oil paint of linseed oil on, and now we're going to sort of continue working, and I'm probably just going to use a mixture of I've got ivory black and titanium white. I'm just going to make just a few little mix up. Just got a tiny bit of medium as well that I'm adding, and I might add a little bit of raw umber, but there's raw umber anyway on there. I'm just going to, yeah, I'm not sure what this is going to look like yet, but we'll see. I could even get a bigger brush. This is the brush I used to oil out, so it's got some medium in it. So hopefully I'm just going to sketch in the values a little bit. His base is generally pretty light, so there's not many really dark areas of shadow apart from the ones that I've actually done. But that's something that will also be developed when I put a colour layer on over the top of this. So when I draw, I will film myself drawing. I sort of loosely sketch it in. You can see sort of roughly I've done some of these leaves and some of the areas around the hair there where it's not so important to get right. I say that simply because he sketched it in very, very quickly, so I don't want to be too fussy about doing it exactly. And then after that I use just a brush with a tiny bit of medium on. It's still fairly dry, and then I sort of carve it a little bit. I find it's quite a useful way to do it. That's kind of the area where it doesn't need to be that light, but anyway. I'm still checking the drawing as I go. This feels quite a bit too wide. And before I started, so it's just whiteboard, that's what I'm enjoying working on at the moment. Caravaggio probably used canvas, but anyway, it's not important really for me, for this exercise, I feel. And but then I just used a bit of acrylic, raw umber. It's just a wash really, just to go over, just to give the board a little bit of a ground, or just some kind of value. And so for example I can leave this ground here, if this is a lighter area, then I think that actually suffices for the that middle tone there. Just do it very lightly anyway. All this is roughly the same. Yeah, so you can see how the ground just becomes very valuable if it's just slightly darker. Sorry, the kids are all off school today, so it's a bit noisy. They're supposed to be ill. So I could just really quickly block it all in, but I feel, for me, it's very valuable just to sort of go around, and it's just always sort of just checking the drawing. Just getting a feel for the drawing as I go. He's got a very impressively arcing eyebrow here. It's quite a come hither look, and he's definitely very tipsy. I don't know what he's saying to me, but it's just a really brilliant picture. And you know, before I have actually sort of painted the whole painting, but I just think I can show you know, the same process just with the portrait. So I'm just going to try and keep the film simple at the moment. So I haven't let the drawing, it's not dry, so just got to be careful not to interfere with it too much, but you know, the beauty of that is that I can just carry on perfecting it, if at all. Can't tell, just from the look of the painting, you know, I say it's quite good to leave these sort of middle tones from the ground. I'm just not sure, it just looks like there's a lot more oil paint on the surface in the original than just doing that. But it is recorded that Caravaggio worked in that way. It's used more, I think, in his late paintings. So this, I'm going to sort of post it as an example of his, just a copy of his early work, his sort of early style, if at all. And it's not a definitive answer to it, but it's an experiment. But I think hopefully it's going to come close. And the process is simply going to be working as I am. I'll let this dry. I could possibly do another coat, you know, another layer, just to get the sort of so-called grisaille right, or you know, this underpainting right. and put in a bit of, just to warm it up, just a little bit of raw umber. And you know, and then I'll go straight in as I did with Rubens painting, just straight in and do some colour, just a layer of colour, and you can see that very, very clearly in Caravaggio's late work. In his late work, I think it's a lot more contrasted, and he used this the tenebrism, the sort of dramatic effects of light and dark, you know, much more powerfully. I'm particularly thinking of his last painting, St. Ursula, which was left unfinished, and it's on the Google Arts and Culture website, and you can look very closely and see how he did it. And you know, the contrasts are really extreme between the lights and the darks. Here less so, certainly in the face, and you know, on the hands and things like that. Feels very too cool, so I'm just mixing some brown in. And also I should give credit to Joseph Shepherd, who wrote that, you know, it's quite a famous book, How to Paint Like the Old Masters, and so I was just looking at that as well again. And you know, I think that's really valuable actually, as a series of sort of exercises. It's quite hard to fathom the process just from, you know, it's in book format, so you've just got a series of images and a little bit of text describing what he was actually doing. But you know, it's still pretty good. His one's on Caravaggio, but yeah, we're all sort of guessing really a little bit. I'm sorry if that was at all out of focus. Gosh. Needs to be darker than the middle tone here. And I think you just, at this stage, we're going to do it as many times as we need until it works. Yeah, I'll see how much time I spend on it. Purely so that we, I'm just trying to do it so that we can get to a point where his process just becomes a little bit clearer. And this line, the jawline, is definitely not that pronounced as I've drawn it. So I'm just gonna, it's quite subtle. Maybe just, if I just go over it gently, I can mix a tiny bit of the white in with the line that I've already drawn. It's just quite dark. It's got a dimple. What's going to help is just working into the background just a tiny bit. Put a bit of medium in. It's probably, well, I've got raw umber, I'm just going to stick with that for now. It's quite warm though, so maybe later I'll do another glaze of burnt umber. I'm just going to, so I've got an idea of just where the drawing is, even though I know it's going to be dark later. And I will do all the leaves and everything, but I'll do that off camera because it's just going to take too long. And I think, yeah, don't need to get too bogged down into this. I said, we can work on it as much as we like, but bearing in mind that as long as the drawing's right, there's going to be a lot of colour going on here, which is going to sort of define a lot of the forms as well. And, and draw it. Just simply the chroma itself. Well, it's looking a little bit flat, but you know, that's inevitable, I guess. And everything is going to change when we get some colour on. And yeah, you forgive me, I'm going to have to sort of come in later and just pick up some of the really fine details off camera because I just can't do it. I have to get really close. Okay, let's just finish this. So we're just, you know, really just getting a good layer of paint on of a similar value to the final, to the end product. It's a base to work from. Just need a bit more white. Oh God. Yeah, I've never worn gloves when I paint, but maybe I should, I think. It's going to be something I've got to get into. If you look, I remember years ago actually looking at, oh, I can't remember which painting it was. I think it's in the National Gallery in London, but by Caravaggio, and just like marvelling at his, you know, really amazingly expressive brushwork. You know, it's just so sort of rapid fire. But just what made me think of that was just always sort of being aware of following the line of the forms as we paint. It's another way just to become conscious of what we're really drawing and the architecture of a face, of a figure, of anything. So for example, you know, there's the muscle of his neck there. So what I'm doing is I've got a little bit more white. I've already gone over it. The ground is showing through a tiny bit, but just, I don't know if you can see just in this area, so I can just leave part of it. There are some just ever so subtle changes in the value, just around there. And I've got, you know, so I've got a collarbone here. But the point is I've gone over it once and then I work into it with either a lighter or a darker colour. Here a lighter one. You know, they're just very, very different, very subtle changes in value. I think so for now. I might just stop filming and I'll come back. And I'll come back in a minute when I've just spent a bit of time just refining this because possibly it's a bit boring. But this is so basically this is a process that just continues on now. You know, we just keep sort of working into it, keep deepening it, and that can happen between coats or glazes. So if it's not right now and feel, I do find the best way is to wait for it to dry possibly. But you know, it could be enough just at this stage, but the point is just to give it a little bit more work. Just sort of keep working until it's done, until it's right. So for example around here I can't quite tell what's going on. Just got to be careful. So but I'll get there, it just takes time. So I worked on it for about another half an hour, and you know, for now that's sort of enough for me just to try and get the values right in the face. Just a little bit more modelling around you know, the cheeks and stuff. And I thought that version was a lot softer than where it ended up here, where I've just painted in just very quickly, you know, the black or dark. I mixed a bit of raw umber and black to do the sort of dark hair, and then I modelled the leaves, and you know, just roughly, because that's all I need really for the purpose of this exercise. So you know, I'll demonstrate how I might go about glazing something like that, and obviously, you know, if you're doing a finished painting, we can take it much further. But that's enough for me for now. So the next video will be the glazing. So please let me know what you think, and I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.